Moms of Reddit, what's the bravest thing you've seen your toddler do? Story 1. My 2-year-old climbed to the top of the playground's big slide, the one meant for much older kids, and, with a dramatic wee, threw himself down like a pro. I was half screaming and half proud as he landed at the bottom, beaming with pride. He turned around, pointed back up, and said, again, bravery or sheer toddler invincibility. Either way, my heart is still racing. Story 2. My 3-year-old insisted we battle the dragon, our overly energetic golden retriever, together. While I cowered behind a cushion, she marched up to the dog with her foam sword, proclaimed, I am brave, and bonked the dragon on the nose. The dog was so startled, he stopped mid-zoomies. Brave night, indeed. Story 3. There was a loud thunderstorm one night, and I was nervously shutting windows while my toddler stood at the door yelling, come in, thunder. We have cookies. The kid was inviting the storm into our house. I was both horrified and amazed by her lack of fear. Story 4. At the grocery store, my son saw a man drop his wallet. Without hesitation, he grabbed it and marched up to the man, saying, you dropped this. The man thanked him, and my son puffed up his little chest and declared, I'm a hero. You are, kiddo. You are. Story 5. We had a spider in the bathroom. While I screamed for my husband, my 3-year-old calmly picked it up with a tissue and said, he's my friend now. I stood frozen while she walked outside and released it like it was no big deal. She's braver than I'll ever be. Story 6. My daughter, she got stuck in the mud at the park, and while I fretted about how to get it back, she stomped right into the muck with her other foot, yanked it out, and held it up triumphantly. Mud everywhere, but she declared, I saved it. Story 7. We were at the playground when another kid tried to snatch a toy from a crying toddler. My 4-year-old marched over, put her hands on her hips, and said, that's not nice. You have to share. She handed the toy back to the crying kid and walked away like a boss. Story 8. My son had to get a shot at the doctor's office. I was ready for tears and bribes, but he just looked at the nurse and said, I'm strong. Let's do this. He didn't even flinch. I almost cried, but he gave me a thumbs up like it was no big deal. Story 9. We went on a hike, and my 3-year-old decided he was going to lead the way. He held his little stick like a spear and said, I'll protect you, Mommy, as he fearlessly stomped through the trail. We only made it half a mile, but he was my brave little explorer. Story 10. Our cat hissed at the vacuum cleaner, and my daughter ran to stand between them, arms outstretched. Leave Mr. Whiskers alone, she yelled at the vacuum, as if it could understand. She's 3, and she's already defending the helpless. Story 11. On her first day of preschool, my 4-year-old grabbed my hand and said, don't worry, Mommy. You'll be okay without me. She kissed me on the cheek and walked in like she owned the place. I cried in the car, but she came out smiling, of course. Story 12. At a birthday party, someone dropped their ice cream cone, and the kid was crying. My son handed over his own cone without a second thought. I was floored. I can get another one, he told me later. Where did this little hero come from? Story 13. We were at the community pool, and my toddler decided she wanted to jump off the diving board like the big kids. She climbed up, looked back at me, and yelled, watch me, Mommy. Before leaping in, she paddled to the edge with the lifeguard's help, grinning like she'd won an Olympic medal. Story 14. We went to a museum with animatronic dinosaurs. While I was mildly terrified of the T-Rex's roars, my 3-year-old walked right up to it and said, hi, dinosaur. Want to play? She even tried to hug it. Brave doesn't begin to cover it. Story 15. My son saw litter on the playground and immediately started picking it up. The earth is sad, he told me. Other kids joined in when they saw him. It was one of the sweetest and bravest things I've ever seen. Story 16. My daughter tried a lemon slice for the first time, made the sourest face imaginable, and then said, it's spicy, but I like it. She kept eating it. She has the courage of a chef trying bold new flavors. Story 17. She insisted on taking off her training wheels at 4. I was terrified she'd fall, but she hopped on, wobbled a bit, and then took off down the street yelling, I'm flying. I've never been so proud or scared. Story 18. One night, she told me, I'm not scared of the dark. The nightlight is my friend. She stayed up talking to it, telling it stories to help it not be lonely. Brave and considerate. Story 19. At the grocery store, my son saw an elderly woman struggling with her bags. He tugged on my hand and asked if he could help. I almost cried as he carried one of her smaller bags to her car. Story 20. My toddler saw a squirrel in our backyard and decided to make friends. He walked right up to it, held out a cracker, and whispered, "Don't be scared." The squirrel ran, of course, but the effort was valiant. Story 21. She declared she'd eat big people food at dinner and tried sushi. The face she made was priceless, but she swallowed it, grinned, and said, "I'm so brave." Story 22. My son climbed to the top of the tallest slide at the park. "I'm a superhero," he shouted before zooming down, his arms spread like wings. Story 23. On a snowy day, my daughter decided to lie down in the snow and make an angel. Even though it was freezing, "The cold doesn't scare me," she yelled through chattering teeth. Story 24. A frog got stuck in our pool. While I panicked about touching it, my 2-year-old scooped it out with his hands and gently placed it in the grass. Story 25. At a birthday party, another kid's balloon popped, and my son gave them his. "You can have mine," he said. "I can be happy without it." Story 26. A bee landed on our picnic table, and while I was freaking out, my daughter calmly placed a cup over it and said, "I'll save it for later." Story 27. At a playdate, 2 kids were fighting over a toy. My son stepped between them and said, "Let's take turns." Problem solved. Story 28. She wanted her hair cut short like a superhero. She didn't even flinch at the scissors and proudly showed it off afterward. Story 29. At a trampoline park, my son decided he was going to fly off the highest platform. He jumped into the foam pit with zero hesitation. Story 30. At a wedding, my daughter was the first one on the dance floor. She twirled and spun, completely fearless, while everyone clapped for her. She even pulled me in, saying, "Don't be shy, mommy."